What if I told you that the reality you touch does not exist? That it is only the echo of an invisible architecture that you yourself are designing right now. Most live trapped in labyrinths they do not remember building. But you have come here looking for a crack in the wall. This is not another self-help audiobook. It is the master plan of creation that history has hidden. Your consciousness is the divine architect, and it is time to reclaim your design power. If you listen to this until the end, the structure of your world will never be the same again. Welcome to the archives of the divine self. Construction begins. Imagine for a moment that the physical world is not solid, that walls, mountains, and even people are just three-dimensional projections of invisible geometric planes that constantly emanate from your own consciousness. This is not a metaphor. It is the mystical and scientific reality that has remained hidden under layers of materialism. We are all architects, but most of us are sleepwalkers, building without intention, living in narrow, limiting mental structures full of fear, erroneously believing that we are victims of an external world that imposes its rules on us. But there is something inside you, an ancient and divine spark, that remembers the pure power of creation. You are here because that memory has begun to awaken, because you can no longer stand living in a building you didn't design, under a sky others painted for you. You know, in the depths of your being, that there is a different way of existing, one where every thought is a stroke on the master plan and every emotion a brick in your reality. In the architectural echo, we will not only explore this theory, we will give you the tools to become the master builder of your own existence. You will learn to identify the mental geometries that limit your life, to clear the corrupt foundations of your consciousness, and to draw harmonic blueprints aligned with your divine self. We will teach you to emit intentional echoes that resonate in the quantum field of infinite possibilities, attracting toward you the experiences, people, and opportunities that reflect your true essence. This knowledge is powerful and, for many, terrifying. It demands that you take full responsibility for your reality. You will no longer be able to blame luck, fate, or others for the structures in which you live. But in exchange, it offers you absolute freedom, the power to tear down the prisons of your mind and build cathedrals of abundance, love, and wisdom. The universe is your raw material. Your consciousness is the architect, and the time to build is now. If you have been looking for answers, if you feel there is more to life than what your senses show you, this audiobook is for you. But I warn you, once you hear these words, once you understand how your consciousness structures reality, you will no longer be able to see the world the same way. Are you ready to reclaim your design power? Chapter 1. The Geometry of Thought. The greatest triumph of materialism has been convincing us that what we cannot touch does not exist, or that it is, at best, an accidental byproduct of biological activity. We are taught that a thought is simply an electrical impulse in the brain, a momentary spark without substance. This view is limiting and fundamentally false. From a deep metaphysical perspective, imagine for a moment that you could see the world not with your physical eyes, but with a spectral lens capable of detecting the frequencies of consciousness. If you looked at a person in that state, you would not see just a body of flesh and bone. You would see a vibrant cloud of complex shapes. You would see a kaleidoscope of geometric structures floating in their energy field. You would see cubes floating near their chest, spirals spinning around their head, and perhaps an expansive torus enveloping them completely. These shapes are not decorative. They are the direct manifestation of their mental and emotional activity. They are the blueprints that the universe is reading at that precise moment. Ancient metaphysics, hidden under veils of symbolism, always knew this. The Platonic solids, the flower of life, Metatron's cube, these are not just mathematical curiosities. They are descriptions of the fundamental building blocks of consciousness. When you think, you are carving the ether. When you feel, you are giving volume to that carving. You are an invisible sculptor, and the studio where you work is your own mind. The problem is that most of us are blind and sleepwalking sculptors, creating geometric monstrosities by accident, and then wondering why our lives feel monstrous. The anatomy of the thought form. To understand how these shapes interact with reality, we must first understand their anatomy. A thought form consists of two main metaphysical elements: intention, the directive, and emotion, the fuel. Intention is the initial stroke on the blueprint. It is the direction of thought. If you think, "I want peace," you have drawn a line. But a line has no volume. It cannot hold anything in the physical world. This is where emotion comes in. Emotion is the force that gives volume, density, and mass to the thought form. If you think, "I want peace," with a deep and burning desire, that line expands, curves, and closes in on itself, creating a structure. The quality of the emotion determines the geometry of the structure. Low-frequency emotions, such as fear, guilt, or anger, create dense, rigid shapes with sharp angles and closed surfaces. High-frequency emotions, such as love, gratitude, or joy, create fluid, expansive, symmetrical, and open shapes. The universe, in its infinite and neutral intelligence, does not judge your creations. It simply responds to the structure. If you emit a perfect cube of fear, the universe will build a reality that fits that cube. If you emit an expansive torus of love, the universe will build a reality that fits that torus. It is pure metaphysical physics, devoid of morality, but full of consequences. Let's examine three of the most common mental architectures we build, so you can learn to recognize them in yourself. The cube of fear, the architecture of restriction. Fear is perhaps the most active architect in the average human consciousness, and its characteristic design is the cube. Why a cube? Think of the properties of a cube. It has 6 flat faces, rigid right angles, and a completely enclosed interior. It is the perfect definition of restriction and separation. When you live with fear, whether fear of lack, fear of judgment, fear of illness, or fear of death, you are constantly emitting invisible cubes into your energy field. These structures are dense and heavy. They settle in your aura like concrete blocks. Imagine a person obsessed with financial security, driven by a deep fear of poverty. Every thought of "I won't have enough" or "I could lose everything" carves a face of the cube. Every emotion of panic or anxiety gives density to that cube. Over time, this person is surrounded by an invisible wall of fear cubes. Psychologically, this manifests as a closed mind, tunnel vision, and an inability to see opportunities. Metaphysically, the effect is even more devastating. The resonant field of the universe, which we will explore in the next chapter, crashes against the flat, rigid faces of these cubes and bounces off. Nothing new can enter. Abundance, which is fluid and expansive by nature, finds no opening in this cubic architecture. The person trapped in the cube of fear lives in a perpetual prison that they themselves have built, brick by brick, thought by thought. Their reality becomes a constant repetition of restriction, confirming their worst fears and motivating them to build even thicker cubes. It is a structural feedback loop that can only be broken by awareness. The torus of love, the architecture of expansion. At the opposite end of the geometric spectrum, we find the design of unconditional love, gratitude, and pure joy. Its shape is the torus. Imagine a donut or a ring, but with a field of energy that constantly flows outward from the center, wraps around the form, and returns inward through the opposite pole in an infinite cycle. The torus is the shape of self-sustainability, harmony, and total connection. It has no flat faces where energy can crash and bounce. Everything is flow and perfect curvature. When you experience true love, not possessive or conditional love, which are often disguised cubes, but the love that simply is, you are emitting an expansive torus. This form is light, luminous, and highly vibrant. It does not sit on you. It envelops you and connects you with everything around you. A person living from the torus of love emits a frequency that the universe reads as total harmony. The resonant field does not bounce. It flows through the form and returns amplified. Psychologically, this manifests as an open mind, empathy, creativity, and a deep sense of connection with life. Metaphysically, the torus of love attracts more of its own frequency toward itself. Opportunities, sincere relationships, and synchronicity flow to this person effortlessly because their mental architecture presents no resistance. Living in the torus of love is living in a state of architectural grace, where the construction of your reality is an act of joyful and fluid co-creation with the divine self. It is the master design to which we are all called to aspire, the true geometry of our divine essence. The spiral of doubt, the architecture of fragmentation. Between the rigidity of the cube and the harmony of the torus, there is a particularly insidious and common mental form, the fragmented spiral of doubt and indecision. Doubt is not a closed form. It is a movement. Imagine a spiral that starts with a clear intention, but is interrupted by contradictory thoughts, fears, and judgments. The spiral breaks, fragments, and begins to spin on itself erratically. When you are mired in doubt, I want this, but what if it goes wrong? I think I can, but maybe I'm not capable. You are emitting these broken spirals. They do not have the stability to hold anything, but they have enough energy to scatter and fragment your vital field. Imagine someone trying to manifest a new project. It begins with an upward spiral of enthusiasm and intention, but soon doubt intervenes. The thought of, what if I fail, cuts the spiral. Then the thought of, but I have to try, creates another partial spiral in a different direction. The result is geometric chaos, a cloud of spiral fragments clashing with each other. Psychologically, this manifests as confusion, paralysis by analysis, lack of focus, and a constant feeling of spinning in circles. Metaphysically, the universe receives a contradictory and fragmented plan. It tries to build something, but the blueprint changes. The result is a chaotic, unstable reality, full of false starts, delays, and mediocre results. The spiral of doubt is a massive leak of structural energy. It exhausts your design power by scattering it in multiple contradictory directions. It is the architecture of self-sabotage, and recognizing its pattern is crucial. The awakening of the invisible sculptor. As you reach the end of this first chapter, your task is clear. You must stop being a blind sculptor. The invitation of the God Self Archives is for you to begin developing your spectral vision, your architectural eye. During the next few days, do not try to change your thoughts or emotions. Simply observe them. But do not listen to them as words, feel them as shapes. When you feel anxiety, ask yourself, what shape is this? Is it a cube pressing on my chest? Is it a metal net wrapping around my head? When you feel joy, ask yourself, is it a torus expanding from my center? Is it a luminous sphere enveloping me? When you feel doubt, observe the fragmented spirals spinning in your mind. This simple act of conscious observation begins to strip these forms of their automatic power over you. By recognizing the geometry, you cease to be the victim of the form and become the observer of it. And in that space between you and the mental form lies the power of your divine self to eventually redesign. Remember, you are the invisible architect. Your mind is your studio. And every moment is an opportunity to carve the ether with the geometry of the divinity that you are. See you in the next chapter. Chapter 2, The Resonant Field. The physical reality you perceive does not stand on its own. It is not an inert, empty stage where objects simply exist. Matter is the final stage of a process of densification that begins in consciousness. For the invisible geometry of your thoughts, those cubes, toroids, and spirals, to gain tangibility, they require a medium. This requires a receptive substance, a cosmic scaffolding that acts as the raw material of creation. This medium is the material consciousness of the universe, the very fabric of existence that, for the purposes of this archive, we will call the resonant field. The first illusion to dismantle is the idea of emptiness. The space between you and this recording, or between planets and stars, is not empty. It is full. It is saturated with an invisible, ultra-sensitive, and consciously passive substance. This field is the divine matrix, the infinite ocean of pure potential in which all physical-temporal reality is submerged and sustained. You cannot see it with physical eyes, just as a fish cannot see the water in which it swims, but it is the indispensable medium for its existence. This resonant field is not energy in the conventional sense, nor is it matter. It is consciousness in its most receptive and plastic state. It is the cosmic mother, the matrix. It receives the blueprint of the divine architect, your intention and structured thought, and gives it a body. This substance possesses a fundamental quality. It is ultrasensitive to geometric form and vibratory frequency. It does not respond to vague desires or chaotic emotional pleas. It responds to coherent structures. Imagine this field as an infinite cosmic neural network or a mystical clay permeating the entire multiverse. Every point in this network is interconnected and aware of all other points. When you emit a persistent mental form, you are exerting an invisible but real pressure on this cosmic clay. The field does not judge the form. It does not determine if a design is good or bad for you. It simply molds itself, with mathematical and absolute fidelity, around the structure of consciousness you present to it. You are a sculptor operating in an infinitely docile medium, and the resonant field is your invisible block of marble, waiting to be carved. The mechanism of resonance. The interaction between your invisible mental forms and the resonant field is governed by a fundamental physical-metaphysical principle. Resonance. This is the key mechanism that allows the geometric design of your consciousness to gain density and precipitate toward physical manifestation. In classical physics, resonance occurs when a vibrating object forces another object to vibrate at the same natural frequency. Think of two identical tuning forks. When you strike one, it emits a subtle tone. If you bring the second fork close without touching it, it will begin to vibrate automatically, producing the same tone. They have entered harmonic tuning. They have recognized each other at the frequency level. On a metaphysical level, your mental forms, the cube of fear, the torus of love, the spiral of doubt, are not silent. They emit a specific structural vibratory frequency into the cosmic ether. When you maintain a mental form persistently and with emotional intensity, you are striking your internal tuning fork. This frequency travels through the resonant field. The field, being ultra-sensitive and omnipresent, detects this frequency. Because of its plastic nature, it begins to vibrate in sympathy with your mental form. If you emit a frequency of lack and restriction, a cube of fear, the resonant field around you begins to vibrate at that same restrictive frequency. If you emit a frequency of harmony and expansion, a torus of love, the field vibrates in tune with that expansion. It is a mirror that makes its own substance vibrate with your melody. Resonance nodes, the invisible scaffolding. When the resonance between your mental form and the resonant field persists, a critical phenomenon occurs. The shared vibratory energy begins to concentrate at a focal point in the invisible ether. This zone of extremely high harmonic tuning is what we will call a resonance node. Imagine a whirlpool in a river. The water flows normally, but at a specific point, due to the structure of the riverbed or an opposing current, the water begins to spin, creating a vortex. This vortex is water, identical to the rest of the river, but it possesses a structure, energy, and persistence that distinguish it. It is a focal point of concentrated energy. A resonance node is an energetic vortex in the ocean of the material consciousness of the universe. It is formed by the persistence of your geometric design. When the resonant field vibrates continuously in tune with your cube of fear, the energy of that fear concentrates, creating a dense, rigid, and restrictive resonance node. It is an energetic block in the ether, perfectly formed according to your blueprint. Conversely, if the field vibrates in sympathy with your torus of love, an expansive, luminous, and harmonic resonance node is created. This node is not physical reality yet, but it is its energetic body, its invisible scaffolding. Resonance nodes are the construction plans that the universe is building right now. They are potential realities that have reached a critical mass of structural energy and are about to cross the threshold into the visible. Every circumstance, relationship, or challenge in your life began as an invisible resonance node. Your physical health is the precipitation of vital or chaotic resonance nodes. Your financial situation is the reflection of resonance nodes of abundance or lack. There are no accidents. There are only resonance nodes that have found their physical-temporal alignment. The process of physical-temporal precipitation. We reach the climax. How does an invisible energetic vortex in the ether become a physical house, a real relationship, or a concrete event? Through the process of physical-temporal reality precipitation. This is the moment when the invisible crosses the threshold into the visible, and the metaphysical becomes physical. Consider a common atmospheric phenomenon. On a cold, humid day, the air is saturated with invisible water vapor. You cannot see the water, but you know it is there. Suddenly, the temperature drops. The water vapor reaches its dew point and instantly precipitates into visible liquid droplets on surfaces. The invisible water has become visible and tangible. Physical-temporal precipitation works analogously. A resonance node is like highly concentrated water vapor in the cosmic ether. It is a potential reality with extremely high energy density. The metaphysical dew point is the moment of perfect physical-temporal alignment. The universe, in its constructive and neutral intelligence, operates as a great orchestrator. It detects the resonance node and begins to align a series of events, synchronicities, people, and conditions in the physical world that vibrate at the same frequency. A person you meet by chance is part of this weather. The resonance node acts as a super-powerful magnet in the physical world. It attracts toward itself the atoms, circumstances, and people necessary to give physical body to the original design. The universe does not create the house out of nothing. It orchestrates the materials and opportunities for it to be built. Time is a buffer and architectural tool. This precipitation process is not instantaneous, and it is crucial to understand why. In the world of pure thought, creation is immediate. You think of a cube, and it exists in your mind. But in the physical world, there is an inherent delay between the blueprint and the building. This delay is the function of physical time. We often misinterpret time as an enemy, a barrier separating us from our desires. From a deep metaphysical perspective, time is an essential structural buffer. It prevents every fleeting, chaotic, or destructive thought from materializing instantly, which would turn reality into unmanageable and dangerous chaos. Imagine if every time you felt a momentary fear for your safety, it materialized instantly. Life would be unbearable. Physical-temporal delay gives you the opportunity to be a responsible architect. It gives you time to revise your plans and realize you are emitting cubes of fear before they precipitate into a crisis. It gives you time to strengthen your toroids of love and gratitude, ensuring that the resonance nodes are solid and harmonic before physical-temporal reality builds around them. Time is not the measure of your waiting. It is the measure of your opportunity to perfect your architectural mastery. By understanding the resonant field, your vision of the universe must change radically. You are no longer an isolated entity separated from the world by an inert vacuum. You are a divine architect operating in an infinite ocean of ultra-sensitive material consciousness. Every thought you hold interacts with the field. What you call your life is the physical projection of the resonance nodes that you yourself have cultivated. Living with this awareness is assuming a sacred responsibility. It means recognizing that you are the origin of the frequency that shapes your world. The invitation is for you to become a master of the resonant field. Chapter 3. Your Inner Blueprint. Your life is a physical projection of the geometry you hold in your consciousness. There are no accidents. There is no luck. There is only cosmic architectural precision. Up to this point, we have established that your thoughts and emotions possess invisible geometric structures, cubes, toroids, spirals. These interact with the ultra-sensitive resonant field of the universe to create the resonance nodes that eventually precipitate as your physical-temporal reality. Now it is time for the inspection. We must stop the construction for a moment and descend to the most sacred and crucial site of the entire creative process, your inner blueprint. This chapter is a direct invitation, a mandate from your divine self, to examine the mental architecture of your own consciousness. Most human beings live in buildings they do not remember designing. They inhabit inherited mental structures, built by the fear of their ancestors, the limitations of society, or the traumas of the past. They live in invisible prisons, believing they are homes, or get lost in mental labyrinths, believing they are exploring. To reclaim your design power, you must become a relentless inspector of your own inner landscape. You must look at the invisible walls surrounding you, the columns that support your reality, and the foundations you rest on. What shape does your mind have? What is the dominant architectural pattern governing your life? We are going to descend and observe. Your inner blueprint is not static. It is a living, vibrant architectural landscape in constant flux, yet always governed by deep structural patterns. These patterns are the result of years of repetition, belief, and emotional investment. They are the master plans that your subconscious uses by default. Inspecting your consciousness requires the development of a new form of vision, the architectural eye of the soul. It is not about judging your thoughts as good or bad. It is about observing their structure and their impact on the resonant field. It is about recognizing whether the geometry you are emitting is a cathedral, a labyrinth, or a ruin. This inspection is painful for the ego because it forces you to assume total responsibility for the structures in which you live. You can no longer blame others for your labyrinth if you recognize that you yourself carve the walls every day. You can no longer lament your ruin if you recognize that you yourself neglect the foundations. But in this pain lies the seed of true freedom. By seeing the structure, you gain the power to tear it down and rebuild it. We are going to explore the 3 most common mental architectural archetypes so that you can learn to recognize them in your own inner blueprint. Archetype 1, the Gothic cathedral. Imagine a majestic Gothic cathedral. Its spires rise toward the sky in a desperate attempt to touch the divine. Its ribbed vaults distribute weight with astonishing mathematical precision, allowing for thin walls and vast stained glass windows that bathe the interior in colored light. Every pointed arch has a purpose. Every flying buttress and every counterfort exists to defy gravity and create a space of spiritual elevation and reverence. It is a complex, intricate structure, yet deeply harmonic and upwardly oriented. To have a cathedral mind is to possess a mental architecture oriented toward the divine self. Its dominant thoughts do not crawl on the ground. They rise toward the highest frequencies of existence. It is a complex mind, yes. It is not simplistic. It contains vast libraries of knowledge, intricate corridors of philosophical reflection, and high vaults of deep meditation. But all this complexity is organized around a central axis. That axis is the connection with the source. The foundations of the cathedral mind are unshakable faith, not as blind belief, but as a deep knowledge of the structural integrity of the universe. Its columns are consciously cultivated virtues: compassion, truth, justice, courage. Its windows are awakened intuition. This intuition allows the light of divine wisdom to illuminate the interior of the consciousness. Psychologically, possessing a cathedral mind manifests as a life with purpose, inner peace, and a deep sense of reverence for all existence. It is a mind that does not break easily under pressure because its metaphysical buttresses exist. They distribute the weight of challenges toward the solid foundations of the divine self. It is a mind capable of sustaining grand and noble visions because its geometry is inherently expansive and harmonic. In the resonant field, the cathedral mind emits a frequency of divine tuning. The resonance nodes it creates are beacons of light, attracting high-vibration synchronicities, sacred relationships, and opportunities for elevated service. It is the architecture of lived holiness, the master design of an awakened soul that co-creates with the universe from a place of love and wisdom. Identifying this pattern in your life is recognizing moments of pure inspiration, acts of selfless service, and the deep peace that arises when you are aligned with your higher purpose. It is the architectural aspiration of the God Self Archives. Archetype 2, the labyrinth. Now, imagine an ancient and complex labyrinth. It is not a garden maze designed for fun. It is a stone labyrinth, dark, restrictive, and designed to confuse. Its corridors are narrow, its turns are sharp and repetitive, and there is no view of the sky. High, cold walls surround you, blocking the light and sense of direction. Every path seems promising, but most end in a dead end, forcing you to retreat and retry, trapped in a perpetual cycle of movement without progress. To have a labyrinth mind is the dominant state of sleeping human consciousness. It is the architecture of confusion, restriction, and separation. Its walls are not stone, but overlapping cubes of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of scarcity, fear of change. These cubes stack on top of each other, creating narrow corridors of limited thought. In the labyrinth mind, thought becomes circular and repetitive. It is the mechanism that makes you spin in circles. You worry about the same problem over and over, without finding a solution, simply reinforcing the walls of your labyrinth. Limited logic and an intellect disconnected from intuition are the only tools you have, and they only serve to analyze the walls, not to jump over them. Psychologically, the labyrinth mind manifests as constant anxiety, paralysis by analysis, indecision, and a deep sense of being trapped and lost. It is a mind that focuses on obstacles, not solutions. It gets lost in insignificant details and loses sight of the big picture. It feels separate from the source. In the resonant field, the labyrinth mind emits a frequency of chaos and confusion. The resonance nodes it creates are chaotic and contradictory. Physical-temporal reality precipitates as a series of repetitive crises, unexplained delays, and complicated relationships. It is the architecture of unconscious self-sabotage. Identifying this pattern in your life is recognizing repetitive cycles of drama, obsessive worries that lead nowhere, and the constant feeling of fighting against invisible walls. It is the design that we must relentlessly dismantle. Archetype 3, the ruin. Finally, imagine an ancient ruin. It may have once been a grand structure, perhaps even a cathedral or a palace. But now the walls are cracked and crumbled, the columns are broken, the roof is gone, and wild nature is reclaiming the space. The foundations are exposed and eroded. It is an unstable, dangerous, and fragmented structure, a melancholy testimony to a design that could not sustain itself against time or neglect. To have a ruined mind is the architecture of fragmentation, unresolved trauma, and energetic instability. It is the design of a consciousness that has suffered deep structural collapses. It operates in a perpetual state of emergency. Its walls are not solid. They are full of cracks where vital energy leaks out. Its metaphysical columns are broken by pain, abuse, or loss. Its foundations are eroded by a lack of self-worth and connection with the divine self. In the ruined mind, thought is chaotic and unpredictable. The spiral of doubt is not only fragmented, but has exploded into 1,000 pieces. There is no structural coherence. The divine self, although always present, is difficult to perceive through the mental and emotional debris. Psychologically, the ruined mind manifests as extreme emotional instability, addictions, deep depression, and a constant sense of being on the brink of collapse. It is a mind that lives in the past, ruminating on the structures that once existed or the events that destroyed them. It feels unworthy of reconstruction. In the resonant field, the ruined mind emits a frequency of instability and emergency. The resonance nodes it creates are unstable and dangerous. Physical-temporal reality precipitates as a series of health crises, financial disasters, and destructive relationships. It is the architecture of extreme victimization. Identifying this pattern in your life is recognizing moments of complete emotional collapse, destructive addictions, and the deep feeling of being broken and hopeless. It is the design that requires a process of sacred reconstruction, starting from the very foundations. Identifying your dominant architectural patterns. Living as a conscious architect requires you to recognize that your inner blueprint is not just one pure archetype. It is a complex mix of these structures. You may have zones of Gothic cathedral in your spiritual or creative life, but live in a labyrinth in your personal relationships and have a ruin in your physical health. Your inner blueprint is a detailed map of how you distribute your vital energy. Where you have a cathedral mind, energy flows upward, creating abundance and peace. Where you have a labyrinth mind, energy stagnates, creating confusion and delay. Where you have a ruined mind, energy leaks, creating crisis and illness. The purpose of this archive is not just for you to understand these concepts intellectually, but to use them as practical inspection tools. You must descend into your inner blueprint and look with brutal honesty. Take a moment right now. Close your physical eyes and open the architectural eye of your soul. Visualize your own consciousness as a vast and infinite building. Walk through it. Observe the area of your relationships. Are you in a narrow corridor of the labyrinth, spinning in circles with the same complaints and fears? Are you standing in a ruin of a past relationship, crying over the broken stones? Or are you in the vault of a Gothic cathedral, surrounded by intuitive light and harmonic connection? Feel the structure. Feel it in your body. The labyrinth feels oppressive and tense. The ruin feels empty and painful. The cathedral feels expansive and at peace. Now look at the area of your work or purpose. Are you building solid pillars of a cathedral of service? Or are you trapped in the labyrinth of worrying about money, emitting cubes of fear of scarcity? Look at the area of your physical health. Is your body the temple of a Gothic cathedral, cared for with reverence? Or is it a neglected ruin full of metaphysical cracks? Do not judge what you see. Do not criticize yourself for having zones of labyrinth or ruin. You are a human being in the process of awakening. Most of us inherited a chaotic inner blueprint. The first step of mastery is simply to see. By recognizing the structure, you activate the power of your divine self, the sacred responsibility of inspection. By reaching the end of this third chapter, your inner blueprint is no longer a mystery to you. It is an operational map of your consciousness. By identifying the dominant architectural patterns in your life, your cathedral, your labyrinth, your ruin, you have acquired a sacred responsibility. You can no longer blame the external world for the structures in which you live. If you are trapped in a labyrinth of financial crises, you now know it is because you are emitting the geometry of the labyrinth in your inner blueprint. If your health is a ruin, you know it is because you have metaphysical cracks. But in this responsibility lies your absolute power. As a divine architect, you have the power to demolish, redesign, and rebuild. You have the power to tear down the walls of your labyrinth, stone by stone, cube by cube. You have the power to clear the debris of your ruin, heal the foundations, and raise a new structure. You have the power to expand the vaults of your cathedral until they touch the sky. The inspection is over. The construction is about to resume, but this time, with a master awareness. Chapter 4. The Law of Structural Integrity. Reality does not manifest, it is built. This is the fundamental truth that the world forgets. And like all construction, it is subject to immutable laws of cosmic physics. Up to this point, we have examined the geometry of your thoughts and emotions, those invisible blueprints that you carve into your consciousness. We have explored the ultra-sensitive resonant field of the universe, the material consciousness that receives your design and gives it body through resonance nodes. And we have performed a deep inspection of your inner blueprint, identifying if you inhabit a Gothic cathedral, a restrictive labyrinth, or a fragmented ruin of trauma. Now it is the moment of architectural truth. We must face the question that haunts so many truth seekers. Why do manifestations fail? Why, despite visualizing, affirming, and trying to have faith, does physical-temporal reality often refuse to precipitate according to our desires? The popular answer is that you lacked faith. From the mystical perspective and authority of the God-Self archives, these answers are superficial and often false. The failure of manifestation is rarely a matter of lack of faith or a capricious universe. It is a matter of pure metaphysical physics. It is the inevitable collapse of a structure that lacks structural integrity. This chapter is dedicated to exploring the law of structural integrity, the immutable cosmic law that dictates that the universe only builds what the blueprint allows. You will learn to identify the metaphysical cracks in your own mental architecture, to understand why your noblest constructions collapse, and to ensure future creations. We live in an era saturated with superficial interpretations of metaphysics. We are taught that the universe is a kind of genie in a lamp that responds to our whimsical desires. We are told that if you visualize a cathedral of abundance, it will manifest simply because you want it. This view is dangerous and ignores cosmic reality. Manifestation is not a chaotic or magical act. It is an ordered process of energetic precipitation. The universe is not a genie. It is a neutral material consciousness ultra-sensitive to structural form. It does not respond to your words. It responds to the integrity of the blueprint you present to it. Imagine yourself as an architect presenting a blueprint for a majestic Gothic cathedral to a cosmic construction crew. The resonant field takes that blueprint and begins to gather the necessary materials. But if the blueprint is flawed, if the columns are misplaced, or if the foundations are eroded by fear, the building will collapse. The collapse is not a punishment from the universe. It is the direct consequence of the law of structural integrity. The universe cannot build a structure that its own blueprint cannot support. The failure of manifestation is, in reality, the success of the law. The universe is protecting you from living in an unstable structure. The three principles of integrity. For a construction, whether a physical building, a relationship, or a healthy body, to possess structural integrity, it must comply with three fundamental metaphysical principles: design coherence, foundation stability, and vertical alignment. If one of these fails, the structure will collapse. Let's explore them. 1. Design coherence. Design coherence requires that all parts of your inner blueprint be aligned and work in harmony. Your thought, your emotion, and your word must emit the same geometric frequency. If any of these elements is in contradiction with the others, you are emitting a flawed and fragmented blueprint. Think of someone trying to manifest a cathedral of harmonic relationship. Their thought says, "I want a loving, conscious partner." This is an expansive torus of love, but their underlying emotion, rooted in past trauma, is emitting a cube of fear of abandonment, and their word constantly complains that all men and women are the same. This is a chaotic blueprint. You have a torus trying to expand over a rigid cube, while a fragmented spiral of doubt spins around it. There is no structural integrity in this design. The universe receives a contradictory plan. It tries to build a column of love, but the fear plan cuts it. The result is a chaotic manifestation. Design coherence is the total alignment of your divine self with your mind, structured thought, your heart, the emotion that gives volume, and your body, the word and action that precipitate. You are a divine architect only when you emit a coherent blueprint. 2. Foundation stability. This is the most ignored and crucial principle. Every construction rests on invisible foundations that determine its stability. In the mental architecture of your consciousness, the foundations are your deep, subconscious beliefs, inherited, archaic thought forms, and unresolved traumas. Imagine you try to build a cathedral of financial abundance. Your design coherence is perfect. You think, feel, and speak of abundance, but you have not examined your subconscious foundations. Down there, in the ruin of your consciousness, reside archaic thought forms. Money is evil, the rich are corrupt, or I am unworthy. These are scarcity foundations. They are dense, rigid, and restrictive cubes of fear. Trying to build an expansive cathedral on these cubes is an act of architectural madness. The cathedral is expansive. The cubes are restrictive. They are opposing forces. Psychologically, this manifests as self-sabotage. When abundance begins to precipitate, your scarcity foundations conflict with the new structure. You feel uncomfortable or afraid. Unconsciously, you make decisions that lead to the collapse of the new financial structure, simply to return to the restrictive stability of your old foundations. The universe does not deny you abundance. It simply cannot build an expansive structure on restrictive foundations. The collapse is inevitable. Stability requires that you descend into the ruin of your consciousness, identify and dismantle archaic thoughts of scarcity, and build new solid foundations of self-worth. Vertical alignment. The third principle is vertical alignment. Every construction must have a central axis that connects it to its source of energy and purpose. In your mental architecture, this axis is your connection to the divine self. It is the alignment of your personal blueprint with the will and purpose of the universe. Think of a Gothic cathedral. Its central axis rises upward toward the sky. Everything in the structure is designed to support this elevation. Vertical alignment requires that your cathedral of manifestation not be just an egoic desire, but a vehicle to express the divine self in the world. If you build a cathedral of success based on the desire for power, control, or external validation, your structure lacks vertical alignment. It is a Tower of Babel, built on the ego and disconnected from the source. This structure is unstable. It has no metaphysical buttresses to distribute the weight of challenges. When external pressure increases, the structure collapses under its own weight, simply because it has no vertical connection to provide stability and elevated purpose. Vertical alignment is the mark of a conscious architect. Their constructions are sustainable because they are designed for service and divine expression. Architectural mastery, building with integrity. By understanding the law of structural integrity, your view of failure must change radically. You are no longer a victim of a capricious universe or your own lack of faith. You are a divine architect operating in a universe of immutable metaphysical physical laws. The failure of manifestation is a message from the universe. Your blueprint lacks structural integrity. Review your design coherence, examine your subconscious foundations, and strengthen your vertical alignment. Collapse is an architectural blessing. It is the necessary demolition for a new, eternal, and harmonic design. The technique for building with integrity. 1. Coherent observation. Before emitting a plan, ensure your thought, emotion, and word emit the same frequency. If there is contradiction, stop. Redesign until there is total design coherence. 2. Foundation clearing. Before building, descend into the ruin of your consciousness. Inspect your subconscious foundations. Dismantle archaic thought forms of fear or unworthiness. Use metaphysical techniques to build new foundations of divine connection. 3. Strengthening vertical alignment. Ensure your new construction is a vehicle for the divine self. Connect your blueprint with a high purpose of service. Strengthen your central axis through deep meditation and tuning to the source. Physical-temporal delay is inspection time. In Chapter 2, we explored the physical-temporal delay, that buffer that prevents instant precipitation. Now, you understand its true architectural function. The delay is the inspection time. It is the period the universe gives you to check the structural integrity of your blueprint before construction finishes. During this time, do not be impatient. Use it wisely. Constantly inspect your design coherence, your foundations, and your vertical alignment. If you detect a metaphysical crack, a thought of fear, a complaint, an egoic desire, correct it immediately. Redesign your blueprint. The delay is your opportunity. By reaching the end of this 4th chapter, you have acquired a sacred responsibility. You can no longer complain that the universe does not listen or that your faith does not work. You know the universe listens perfectly. It simply responds to the integrity of the plan you present. The law of structural integrity is immutable. The universe only builds what the blueprint allows. As a divine architect, you have the power to demolish, redesign, and rebuild. You have the power to ensure that each of your constructions is eternal and aligned with your divine self. The conscious construction is about to resume. Chapter 5. The Resonant Nodes of Reality. Reality is not a random stage where events simply happen. You are not a victim of circumstances, nor a beneficiary of luck. The materialistic view that reduces existence to a series of mechanical clashes and lucky coincidences is the most effective prison of the sleeping human consciousness. It is the lie that keeps you disconnected. The illusion of coincidence. The first barrier we must tear down is the notion of coincidence, or chance. In a universe of divine architectural order, where material consciousness responds with mathematical fidelity to structural form, chance does not exist. The idea that an event happens just because is a confession of metaphysical ignorance. An event, a person you meet at the right time, or an opportunity that arises out of nowhere, are not accidents. They are consequences. They are the physical precipitation of an invisible resonance node that has reached its critical mass of structural energy. Imagine an old radio tuner. You turn the dial, looking for a specific frequency. The air is full of invisible radio waves from dozens of stations, all playing simultaneously, but you cannot hear them. Suddenly, by turning the dial, you reach the exact frequency of a station. The music emerges crisp and clear. Was it a coincidence? No. It was the result of a precise frequency alignment. The same happens in the construction of your reality. Your persistent mental forms, your cubes, toroids, and spirals, act as the dial of your metaphysical tuner. The ultrasensitive resonant field detects this frequency and begins to orchestrate synchronicities in the physical-temporal world that vibrate in sympathy, the anatomy of the physical resonant node. Now, we must understand how this invisible vortex anchors itself in the physical-temporal world. A physical resonance node is the final precipitation point. It is where the highly concentrated energy of the invisible vortex crosses the threshold of the tangible, attracting the atoms and people needed to give it physical body. Imagine you are cultivating a torus of gratitude and abundance. You emit this expansive frequency constantly. This form interacts with the cosmic resonant field. An invisible resonance node is created. an energetic vortex in the ether pulsing with the exact frequency of your harmonic abundance. This node acts as a powerful magnet. It does not create money out of nothing. Instead, it orchestrates a series of synchronous events. A person you meet by chance mentions a business opportunity. An old client calls you. Each of these events is a physical anchor point of the invisible resonance node. They are the physical bricks giving body to your original design. People as resonant nodes. Perhaps the most powerful form of the resonant nodes of reality is human interaction. The people you attract, your deepest relationships and casual encounters, are not random. They are living resonant nodes, physical projections of the geometry of your own consciousness. Every human emits their own complex structural frequency. When you interact with someone, you are interacting with a complex energetic field that enters into resonance or dissonance with yours. Imagine you have a ruin of unresolved trauma emitting a frequency of victim. This frequency creates an invisible resonance node that vibrates with that specific wound. This node acts as a magnet, attracting people whose frequencies fit your wound. You will attract a perpetrator or a savior, both reinforcing your victim identity. That person is the living resonant node orchestrated to reflect the geometry of your own internal ruin. It is a structural echo shouting, "Look, this is the form you emit." Likewise, when you cultivate a torus of love and self-acceptance, you attract people who vibrate in that same frequency of respect. They are living resonant nodes, physical reflections of your own divine tuning. The people in your life are metaphysical mirrors showing you, with mathematical precision, the architecture of your soul. Challenges as nodes of architectural correction. This perspective must be applied even to events the ego perceives as negative. Challenges, crises, and failures are not punishments. They are resonant nodes of architectural correction. Imagine building a cathedral of abundance on foundations of scarcity. This violates the law of structural integrity. The universe detects the instability. To protect cosmic harmony, it orchestrates the precipitation of a financial crisis node. This event is the inevitable collapse of an unstable structure. The failure is a message. Stop. Your blueprint lacks integrity. You cannot build expansion on restriction. Redesign from divine self-worth. The crisis is the structural echo of the contradiction in your blueprint. Seeing it as a catastrophe is to perpetuate victimhood. Seeing it as a resonant node of architectural correction is to reclaim your design power. It gives you the chance to be a divine architect who learns from collapses and rebuilds with integrity. Frequency sustainability. Understanding that your life is the precipitation of invisible resonance nodes grants you immense power, but demands responsibility. This is where most sleepwalking architects fail, in frequency sustainability during the physical-temporal delay. There is a time buffer between the blueprint, thought, and the physical node, event. This delay is the testing ground of your mastery. Imagine cultivating a torus of harmonic relationship. The resonant field begins to orchestrate synchronicities. But time passes and the person doesn't appear. The impatient ego begins to doubt. You introduce cubes of fear and fragmented spirals of doubt into your inner blueprint. By doing so, you change the frequency you emit. The resonant field detects the new dominant frequency of fear and stops the construction of the harmonic relationship. Instead, it orchestrates synchronicities that align with your new restrictive frequency. You will attract emotionally unavailable people, reflecting your internal doubt. Architectural mastery consists of frequency sustainability. It is the ability to maintain the design coherence of your inner blueprint, your torus of love, persistently during the physical-temporal delay, despite having no physical evidence. It is the deep certainty that the invisible node is already orchestrating reality, the sacred responsibility of the divine architect. You are the origin of the frequency that shapes your world. You are the divine architect emitting the geometric blueprints that the material consciousness of the universe materializes with mathematical precision. The events and people in your life are the resonant nodes of reality. They are inevitable structural echoes. What you call your life is the three-dimensional projection of your invisible blueprints. Living with this awareness means you can no longer blame the world out there or luck for your circumstances. It means recognizing that you are solely responsible for the architecture of your own existence. Diagnosing metaphysical static. Why do manifestations get stuck? You have your blueprint and design coherence, yet the physical resonant node does not anchor. The answer is metaphysical static, a frequency interference that contaminates your blueprint just before precipitation. It comes from three main sources. 1. Parasitic observation. This occurs when you spend too much energy observing what is, the lack, instead of what will be, the blueprint. By feeling doubt while looking at an empty bank account, you introduce a micro-cube of restriction. This distortion is enough for the field to stop the harmonic precipitation. 2. Subconscious divided intention. You desire the cathedral of success, but deep down, your ego fears responsibility or judgment. This subconscious fear emits a restrictive frequency that conflicts with your expansive plan. There is no total design coherence, and the construction freezes in a state of energetic neutralization. 3. Mass resonance, the herd effect. You are submerged in collective consciousness. Most of humanity emits cubes of fear constantly. If you don't shield your energy field, your inner blueprint becomes contaminated. You start accepting the limitations that others consider real, weakening your expansive torus. Emergency protocols to unblock manifestations. When a manifestation is stuck, you need metaphysical emergency protocols. Protocol 1, the decree of structural coherence. This is a command from your divine self. From the center of my divine self, I am the master architect. I detect static contaminating my blueprint. I decree the total demolition of any microcube of doubt. My thought is expansion. My emotion is gratitude. It is so. Protocol 2, retroactive precipitation. This technique nullifies parasitic observation. Use your architectural eye to overlay a vibrant image of what you desire onto the current physical reality. Feel the gratitude as if it were there now. You are rewriting the observed static with a harmonic blueprint of presence. Protocol 3, frequency shielding. Before interacting with the world, visualize a sphere of white and golden light around you. Feel that this sphere repels any frequency of fear or lack that does not align with your divine self. Declare, I am the sovereign authority of my energetic field. My inner blueprint is shielded. It is so. The parable of the divine stonemason. There was once a stonemason who recognized he was a divine architect. His divine self inspired a plan for a cathedral of abundance. The blueprint was perfect. He began construction, feeling the invisible structure growing. Weeks passed, but the physical world showed no signs of the cathedral. Only the dusty quarry remained. Impatience filtered into his inner blueprint. Parasitic observation appeared. He looked at the dusty quarry with doubt. By changing the frequency, the field stopped the precipitation and orchestrated challenges. Helpers walked away. Reality reflected his internal static. He then descended to the ruin of his consciousness. Deep in his foundations, he found a divided intention. I fear that if I build the cathedral, I will lose the simplicity of being a simple stonemason. He emitted the decree of coherence, demolished the archaic thought, and redesigned his foundations. He applied the metaphysical armor and the retroactive precipitation technique. He held this frequency relentlessly during the remainder of the inspection time, despite perceiving no evidence. Finally, the threshold was crossed. The physical-temporal precipitation began. The cathedral was built with unshakable structural integrity. He understood that the delay was the time of testing his mastery. Teaching for the divine architect. You are that stonemason. Your life is the cathedral. If your manifestation is stuck, it is due to metaphysical static. The physical-temporal delay is your inspection time. It is your chance to demonstrate mastery by sustaining design coherence despite contrary evidence. Do not waste energy on impatience. Invest it in the blueprint. Chapter 6. The delay. Time as a structural buffer. The conventional perception of time as an unbreakable line moving from past to future is one of the greatest limitations imposed on human consciousness. This linear view is useful for organizing society, but it is metaphysically false and architecturally disastrous. For the divine architect, time is not a prison or an enemy. Time is a tool. It is a malleable substance, a fundamental component in the engineering of reality. Materialistic science and the logical mind cling to the linearity of time because it provides a sense of order. However, in the deeper levels of consciousness, where the geometry of thought interacts with material consciousness, time does not flow. It is oscillating and spherical. All potential exists simultaneously in an eternal now. Manifestation is not bringing something from the future, but densifying a present possibility until it crosses the threshold of the physical. If creation were instant in the physical plane, reality would collapse under the weight of its own instability. Imagine a world where a momentary thought of rage created an instant physical explosion, or where a passing doubt about your health manifested a disease immediately. It would be a state of perpetual emergency, a chaos of forms clashing and destroying each other. Here lies the sacred function of time as a structural buffer. Physical-temporal time acts as a density filter. It prevents low-intensity or highly unstable mental forms, those lacking sustained design coherence, from crossing the threshold of physical precipitation. It is a frequency barrier that protects the stability of the material world, allowing only structures with true integrity to anchor. The delay is, in essence, the measure of resistance that material consciousness opposes to a flawed or inconstant blueprint. For the conscious architect, the delay is not a period of passive and anxious waiting. It is the inspection time. It is the safety interval the universe grants you to revise and perfect your inner blueprint. It is your opportunity to ensure the structural integrity of your construction. Imagine you are building a building in the physical world. You have the blueprints and materials. But before pouring the final concrete, there is a mandatory inspection period. Engineers check the foundations and load calculations to ensure everything is in place. This delay does not stop the construction, it secures it. It prevents the building from being constructed with hidden defects that would lead to a future collapse. Metaphysically, the physical-temporal delay fulfills the same function. During this time, the resonant field is orchestrating reality and aligning synchronicities. But the physical form has not yet precipitated. This is your moment of power. Use the inspection time actively. Do not get carried away by impatience, which is an emission of restrictive cubes of fear and fragmented spirals of doubt that only serve to contaminate the blueprint and prolong the delay. Instead, descend into your internal architectural studio and perform a relentless audit of your design. Observe your design coherence. Are your thought, emotion, and words still aligned? If you detect a subtle contradiction, a thought of scarcity while affirming abundance, correct it immediately. Inspect your subconscious foundations. Have archaic thought forms of limitation reappeared? Strengthen your foundations with new blocks of divine self-worth. Verify your vertical alignment. Is your construction aligned with the high purpose of your divine self, or is it just an ego desire lacking long-term sustainability? The delay is your tool to perfect structural integrity. It is the time the universe gives you to demonstrate that you are capable of sustaining the frequency of your perfect blueprint, even though your physical senses perceive no evidence of the final precipitation. To interact consciously with the structural buffer of time, you must descend from the macro perspective of chronological time. The true engineering of reality does not happen in the future. It happens now. Each present moment is a micro-delay, an interval of harmonic tuning. It is the exact point where your inner blueprint interacts with the resonant field. If you allow your attention to escape to the past or future, you are scattering your design power. You are emitting fragmented spirals that weaken the invisible structure in the field. Architectural mastery consists of anchoring your consciousness in the micro-time of the present. It requires the mystical discipline of holding the sustained design coherence of your blueprint in this precise moment. No matter what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow, the only thing that matters is the geometry you are emitting now. If you sustain your expansive torus of abundance, health, or love with persistence and elevated emotion now, and repeat that now continuously, you are strengthening the invisible resonance node in the ether. You are demonstrating to the resonant field that your design is not an ephemeral whim, but a solid and sustainable structure. By mastering the micro-time of the present moment, you shorten the precipitation time, not by magic, but by the efficiency of your own engineering of sustained coherence. The structural buffer of time becomes docile before the firmness of the divine architect operating in the eternal now. Understanding time as a structural buffer and the delay as an active inspection time is the foundation of mastery. But applying this science in the dense web of experience requires a deeper understanding. It requires understanding the engineering of collapse and frequency sustainability. It is not enough to design a coherent blueprint. The divine architect must possess the mystical discipline to sustain that design against the metaphysical gravity of doubt and the pressure of observing current circumstances. This second part delves into the mechanisms of collapse engineering and frequency sustainability, revealing why the universe must allow the structural failure of inconstant blueprints. You will learn to diagnose the stress points in your mental architecture and to apply the necessary metaphysical armor. You will understand the parable of the divine stonemason to sustain your frequency until the final precipitation, shortening the delay through the efficiency of your own vibratory constancy. The collapse of a construction, be it a relationship, a health crisis, or a financial failure, is rarely a random event or a universal punishment. It is the direct and inevitable consequence of a defect in the structural integrity of the invisible blueprint that sustains it. And the most common factor of collapse is frequency inconstancy, driven by doubt during the physical-temporal delay. Imagine you are building a cathedral of abundance, an expansive structure. You draw the blueprint with design coherence, thought of wealth, emotion of gratitude, word of affirmation. The resonant field detects this harmonic frequency and begins to orchestrate synchronicities. An invisible resonance node is created, an energetic vortex vibrating with the exact frequency of your abundance. But time passes and physical precipitation does not occur immediately. The physical temporal world presents you with current evidence. An empty bank account, bills to pay, the dusty quarry of daily experience. In that key moment of inspection, most sleepwalking architects make a fatal mistake. They shift their attention by observing lack, the absence of abundance, and feeling the subtle sting of doubt, impatience, or fear, emissions of restrictive cubes of fear and fragmented spirals of doubt. You instantly break design coherence. Your thought is still, I want abundance, but your dominant emotion is, I am afraid of scarcity. You have introduced a massive metaphysical crack into your blueprint. This frequency inconstancy introduces metaphysical static. The ultra-sensitive resonant field, neutral and exact, detects the new dominant frequency, fear and lack, and stops the harmonic precipitation of the cathedral of abundance. Instead, it begins to mold material consciousness around the cube of fear, orchestrating synchronicities that align with your new restrictive frequency. You will attract emotionally unavailable people or remain alone, faithfully reflecting your internal doubt. The collapse is not the end of the road. It is a message. It is a message from the universe precipitating in your reality as a resonance node. It is shouting with the voice of physical form. Stop. Your blueprint lacks structural integrity. You cannot build expansion on restriction. Descend to your inner blueprint and dismantle those archaic cubes of fear from your foundations. The crisis is the structural echo of the contradiction in your blueprint. To see it as an external catastrophe is to perpetuate your victim state. To see it as a resonant node of architectural correction is to reclaim your design power. It gives you the chance to be a divine architect who learns from collapses and rebuilds. To guarantee the structural integrity of your constructions during the physical-temporal delay, you must become an expert in diagnosing stress points in your inner blueprint. These points are areas where internal contradiction exerts pressure on the structure, threatening a collapse. The most common stress point is the incongruity between desire and identity. You desire the cathedral of abundance, the external blueprint, but deep in your subconscious identity, you perceive yourself as someone unworthy, a victim of circumstances, or limited, the internal foundations. You want to be the owner of the palace, but you feel like a beggar. This disconnection creates unsustainable tension. The structure of abundance you are trying to build has nowhere to anchor in your identity, and it will inevitably collapse under its own weight. Another critical stress point is attachment to the how. You draw the blueprint for the cathedral of success, but your ego tries to dictate exactly how that success should precipitate. By doing so, you cut vertical alignment with the divine self. You disconnect from the orchestrating intelligence of the universe and limit the possibilities of manifestation to your narrow vision. This lack of vertical alignment weakens the structure, It becomes heavy and rigid, without metaphysical buttresses to distribute the weight of unforeseen challenges. When the egoic plan of how fails, the entire structure collapses because it was not anchored in the source but in the fragility of human strategy. Identifying these stress points in your inner blueprint inspection is the first step to applying the necessary metaphysical armor. It requires brutal honesty to recognize where you are emitting contradictory blueprints and where your ego is sabotaging the construction with its desire for control. Once the stress points are identified and initial design coherence is secured, the conscious architect must apply metaphysical armor to protect the construction during the delay. This armor is not a shield against a hostile universe. It is protection against your own propensity to break coherence under external pressure. Metaphysical armor consists of three essential elements. 1. The armor of foreseeing gratitude. Gratitude is not just a reaction to a benefit received. It is a super-powerful constructive force. By giving thanks for your cathedral of manifestation, before it precipitates, you are emitting the highest frequency of design coherence. You are declaring to the resonant field, I have such certainty in the structural integrity of my blueprint that I already feel its presence. This gratitude acts as a force field that repels frequencies of doubt and fear. It is the expansive torus in its maximum expression. 2. The column of divine indifference. This armor protects against observing contrary circumstances. It does not mean emotional indifference toward the world, but a metaphysical indifference toward temporal evidence that contradicts your inner blueprint. You cultivate the ability to see a physical symptom or an empty bank account and declare internally, this is not my reality. It is only the echo of a past blueprint that I have already redesigned. My true structure is my current blueprint of coherence. This column of divine indifference keeps your focus exclusively on the design, preventing the resonant field from reflecting the current circumstance. 3. The anchor of conscious surrender, total vertical alignment. This is the final armor against attachment to the how. You draw the perfect blueprint, cultivate the elevated emotion, and then consciously surrender to the divine self for the orchestration of precipitation. You declare, this is my harmonic and expansive design. I offer it to the universe to precipitate in the most elevated and perfect way for the greatest good of all. I fully trust the constructive intelligence of the divine self. This conscious surrender anchors your structure directly into the source, strengthening vertical alignment. It allows universal intelligence to orchestrate synchronicities that your ego could never have imagined. It is the mark of the master architect who knows they co-create, not create alone. By integrating metaphysical armor, your relationship with the physical-temporal delay changes. It becomes your arena of mastery. It is the time where you test the structural integrity of your blueprint and the resistance of your armor against the pressure of the world of form. Each challenge that arises during the delay, a persistent doubt or a physical symptom, is a quality inspection sent by the universe. It is an opportunity to demonstrate your sustained design coherence. If you stay firm in your inner blueprint, applying your armor of gratitude, divine indifference, and surrender, you strengthen the resonance node. The delay is not the time the universe takes to build. It is the time you take to demonstrate integrity. By mastering the delay, you shorten the precipitation time, not by magic, but by the efficiency of your own engineering of sustained coherence. You are a master architect when the delay no longer disturbs you, but empowers you. To integrate these teachings, consider the parable of the divine stonemason. There was once a stonemason who, after years of sculpting ordinary stones, had an awakening of consciousness. He recognized he was a divine architect operating in a universe of pure potential. His divine self inspired a master blueprint to sculpt a cathedral of abundance and service to nurture his community. The blueprint was perfect. It had design coherence. The thought of the majestic cathedral, an expansive torus, the emotion of deep gratitude, and the word of decree. He inspected his subconscious foundations and believed he had dismantled the archaic cubes of fear of lack inherited from his lineage of poor stonemasons. He began construction with enthusiasm. He carved the ether with every harmonic thought. He felt the invisible structure of the cathedral growing around him in the resonant field. Days, weeks, months passed. The stonemason observed the physical-temporal world with patience, waiting for the final precipitation. But the physical-temporal world, in its function as a buffer and inspection time, showed no signs of the cathedral. No materials arrived, no helpers emerged, no resonance nodes of opportunity anchored. He only saw the same dusty quarry and the same daily challenges. Impatience began to leak into his inner blueprint. Metaphysical static appeared. He began to look at the dusty quarry, the absence of the cathedral, with a subtle sting of doubt. Perhaps my blueprint is not perfect. Perhaps I am not worthy. He introduced microcubes of restriction into his expansive torus. By changing the frequency, the field stopped the precipitation. It began to orchestrate synchronicities that aligned with his doubt. Challenges intensified. Materials became more expensive. Helpers moved away. The physical-temporal reality faithfully reflected his internal static. The stonemason, on the verge of emotional collapse, descended to the ruin of his consciousness. There, in the deepest part of his foundations, he discovered a hidden and divided, archaic thought form. I'm afraid that if I build the cathedral, I will lose the simplicity and security of being a simple stonemason. This divided intention was sabotaging the entire blueprint. He emitted the decree of coherence. He demolished the archaic thought form and redesigned his foundations based on divine self-worth and connection with the source. Then he applied metaphysical armor. Every time he looked at the dusty quarry and the static of fear arose, he cultivated the column of divine indifference toward the contrary evidence, and he anchored himself in conscious surrender to the divine self for perfect orchestration. He held this frequency relentlessly during the rest of the inspection time, even though his physical senses perceived no evidence. He did not waste energy on impatience. He invested it in sustaining the perfect blueprint. Finally, the threshold was crossed. Physical-temporal precipitation began. Materials arrived, helpers emerged, resonance nodes anchored. The cathedral was built with unshakable structural integrity, faithfully reflecting the sustained blueprint of the divine stonemason. He understood that the delay was not waiting time. It was the time of inspection and testing of his architectural mastery. You are that stonemason. Your life is the cathedral you are building. If your manifestation is stuck, it is due to the metaphysical static introduced by frequency inconstancy during the delay. The delay is your inspection time, is your inspection. It is your opportunity to demonstrate mastery by sustaining sustained design coherence despite contrary evidence. Use metaphysical armor, foreseeing gratitude, divine indifference, conscious surrender, to shield your construction. Do not waste energy on impatience. Invest it in sustaining the perfect blueprint. Become the divine architect who knows that their task is not to create the form, but to sustain the frequency until precipitation is inevitable. Chapter 7. Clearing the ground. Conscious creation is not an act of addition, it is an act of subtraction. Most attempts at personal transformation fail because they are based on the erroneous premise of building a new and elevated structure on ground, saturated with archaic debris and collapsed foundations. The universe operates under laws of structural integrity. In its constructive and neutral intelligence, it cannot and will not build a cathedral of abundance or a tower of health on a substrate of lack, disease, or unresolved trauma. Energy stagnates, geometry distorts, and manifestation is suspended in a state of energetic neutralization. Conscious demolition. Before drawing the first blueprint of your new reality, before emitting the first structural vibratory frequency of expansion, you must become a master demolisher. You must descend to the deepest levels of your inner blueprint and perform a relentless inspection of the ancient and unstable structures that inhabit your consciousness. You will learn metaphysical techniques to identify archaic thought forms and corrupt foundations that sabotage your creations, and to use the force of your divine self to clear the ground, ensuring that your future buildings are eternal and harmonic. There is a natural human tendency to avoid looking at the debris of the past. We prefer to focus on the brilliant vision of the future, on the cathedral of manifestation we desire. We believe that if we visualize and affirm with enough intensity, the new structures will simply replace or cover the old ones. This vision is architecturally disastrous and metaphysically false. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper of glass and steel over the remains of an ancient feudal castle that collapsed due to unstable foundations and corrupt materials. You do not dismantle the cracked walls, You do not excavate the eroded foundations. You simply pour new concrete over the old debris and begin to raise the modern structure. The result is inevitable: structural collapse. The weight of the skyscraper, designed for expansion and height, exerts unsustainable pressure on the unstable debris and corrupt foundations below. Archaic cracks propagate upward, distorting modern geometry. The building creaks and wobbles until it finally collapses, not because of a defect in the new blueprint, but because of negligence in cleaning the old ground. In your mental architecture, the failure of manifestation is the success of the law. The universe is protecting you from living in an intrinsically unstable structure. Collapse is necessary demolition. Before building abundance, you must demolish scarcity. Before building health, you must demolish disease. Before building love, you must demolish separation. Clearing the ground is not optional. It is the prerequisite for eternal structural integrity. To clear the ground of your consciousness, you must develop a new form of vision, the archaeological eye of the soul. It is not about judging your thoughts as good or bad. It is about diagnosing their age, their origin, and their structural integrity. You must become a relentless inspector of the invisible structures that inhabit your inner blueprint. The ground of your consciousness is not empty. It is saturated with archaic thought forms, ATF. These are dense and rigid geometric structures that you inherited from your ancestors, adopted from society, or built yourself in states of fear or trauma. These ATFs are like the stone ruins of the parable. They are ancient, solid, and operate automatically, beyond the reach of your current conscious intention. The archaeological inspection technique. Descend into your internal architectural studio. Do not try to visualize the future. Focus on the observed present. Close your physical eyes and open your mystical eye. Visualize the area of your life you wish to transform: money, relationships, health. Do not look at external events. Look at the invisible structure behind them. What shape does it have? Is it a restrictive cube of fear pressing against your chest? Is it a metal net wrapping around your head? Is it a fragmented spiral of doubt spinning erratically? Feel the texture of the form. Is it cold and rigid? Is it dense and heavy? Does it feel ancient, as if it had been there forever? If the answer is yes, you have identified an archaic thought form. To diagnose its origin, use the technique of subtle genealogical resonance. While observing the ATF, ask yourself internally, to whom does this restrictive frequency belong? Is it mine, or is it a structural echo of my parents, my grandparents, or society? Often, upon asking this question, you will feel a subtle harmonic tuning with a specific ancestor or historical era. You will instantly know that the cube of fear of lack is not your fear, but the vibratory echo of a grandfather who lived through a deep financial crisis. You have inherited the archaic blueprint of his scarcity, and it is operating as an invisible scaffolding that sabotages your current attempts to build abundance. Identifying the origin and age of the ATF is crucial. By recognizing that it is not your current creation, but an inherited archaic structure, you strip the form of its automatic power over you. You cease to be the victim of the form and become the observer of it. In that space between you and the archaic form resides the power of your divine self for conscious demolition. Dismantling corrupt foundations. Once the archaic thought forms on the surface of your consciousness are identified, you must excavate deeper. You must inspect the foundations upon which these old structures rest. In your mental architecture, foundations are your deep subconscious beliefs. They are your archaic truths about who you are and what is possible for you. Imagine trying to build a cathedral of radiant health on foundations of inherited cubes of fear of disease. The blueprint of the cathedral is perfect, an expansive torus of health, vitality, and gratitude. But attempting to anchor this structure upon the rigid cubes below creates unsustainable tension. The cathedral is expansive. The cubes are restrictive. They are opposing forces. The universe cannot build an expansive structure on restrictive foundations. Collapse is inevitable. Inspecting your foundations requires the development of deep cellular tuning. It is not about what you think consciously, but what your cells know to be true. The subconscious excavation technique. Descend to your internal ruin and place yourself directly over the foundations of the area you wish to transform. Do not use words. Use vibration. Emit a frequency of divine self-worth and deservingness of total expansion. Feel this frequency resonating in your heart. Now, observe the reaction of your deep subconscious foundations. Do they resonate with this expansive frequency of deservingness? Or do you feel a subtle resistance, a creaking of out-of-tune, restrictive cubes of fear? If you feel resistance, you have identified a corrupt foundation. If a subconscious whisper says, "I am unworthy," "It is too good to be true," or "I always get sick, I fail," you have found the archaic cube of fear that is energetically neutralizing each of your elevated constructions. The dismantling of corrupt foundations is an act of sacred metaphysical surgery. It requires the direct intervention of your divine self. The foundation demolition and retuning technique. While standing over the corrupt foundations, visualize your divine self as a radiant sun of white and golden light in the center of your chest. Imagine that this light not only shines outward, but concentrates downward toward the corrupt foundations, like an ultra-sensitive cosmic demolition laser. While directing this demolition light toward the corrupt foundation, the cube of fear of unworthiness, for example, emit the decree of demolition and operative retuning. From the center of my divine self, I am the sovereign authority of my consciousness. I detect this corrupt foundation of unworthiness, sabotaging my structural integrity. In this moment of eternal power, I decree the total and immediate demolition of this archaic cube of fear and all its associated archaic thought forms. I invoke the light of the divine self to burst into the density of this corrupt structure, disintegrating its energetic molecules. The ground of my subconscious foundations is now clean, pure, and receptive. I retune the underlying material consciousness with the perfect frequency of divine self-worth and deservingness of total expansion. My foundations are now solid, based on the eternal light of the divine self. It is so. It is. Feel the light of the divine self burst into the corrupt foundation, disintegrating it completely. Feel how the underlying material consciousness retunes with the frequency of deservingness. Feel the solidity and peace that arise when your deep subconscious foundations are aligned. You have cleared the ground. You have ensured the eternal structural integrity of your future constructions. Consolidation of the fertile void and sowing the new substrate. Once conscious demolition has concluded and the debris has been transmuted by the light of the divine self, the terrain of consciousness enters a sacred state, the fertile void. This is not a space empty of content, but a state of pure potential. It is a material consciousness ultra-sensitive and purified of restrictive memories. Many architects make the fatal mistake of rushing to build immediately after demolition, attempting to emit new frequencies of expansion without allowing the ground to settle in its new purity. This impatience introduces a subtle static of anxiety that can distort the new geometry. The void protocol requires a period of constructive silence. Hold the awareness of the clean, pure, and settled ground for a time. Do not pass judgment. Do not visualize the future. Do not desire. Simply be the pure and receptive space. Feel the peace and solidity of the new foundations based on divine self-worth. Allow the resonant field to stabilize in this frequency of purity. It is the time of perfect tuning before the sowing. Following this period of stillness, proceed to the fundamental sowing of the new substrate. Before drawing complex blueprints, you must permeate the ground with fundamental and stable frequencies that serve as nourishment and scaffolding for your future constructions. This is the sowing of essential metaphysical nutrients. Use the decree of fundamental sowing and metaphysical nutrition. Upon this pure and clean ground, I am the divine architect sowing the substrate of my new reality. I emit the unshakable frequency of divine peace. I permeate every atom of this ground with unconditional love. I establish the vibratory base of infinite abundance and perfect health. This substrate is fertile, stable, and harmonic, perfectly aligned with the will of the divine self. It is the perfect scaffolding and essential metaphysical nutrition for my future eternal constructions. It is so. Feel how these fundamental frequencies settle into the ground, creating a vibrant and luminous substrate. Feel how the ground becomes nourishing and receptive. You have cleared the ground and sown the seed of eternal structural integrity. Conscious construction can now begin upon an unshakable base, nourished by pure love and aligned with the divine source. Chapter 8. Tracing Harmonic Blueprints. The clearing of the ground of consciousness is an act of metaphysical liberation, but it is only the prelude to the true architectural work. You have demolished the archaic structures, transmuted the subtle residues of limitation, and settled the substrate with fundamental frequencies of peace and unconditional love. Now you stand before the fertile void, a state of pure potential and purified material consciousness, awaiting the design of the divine architect. Most human beings live trapped in the labyrinth of desire. They desire abundance, health, or love. But they emit these desires as chaotic, inconstant, and often contradictory frequencies. Desire, in its pure state and disconnected from structured intention, is a scattered force. It is like trying to build a building by throwing sand into the air with the hope that it will solidify into a column. It possesses no geometry, no structural integrity, and therefore the ultrasensitive resonant field cannot reflect it. The consequent emanation requires you to transform vague desire into a structure of consciousness. You must become an invisible sculptor operating in the studio of your own mind. Your pure intention is the tool that carves the ether, defining the lines, angles, and curvatures of your new reality. Your elevated emotion is the force that gives volume and density to that carving, turning a two-dimensional drawing into a vibrant and luminous three-dimensional structure. Imagine you wish to manifest a cathedral of financial abundance. Do not just visualize an image of money, that is superficial. As a divine architect, you must design the invisible structure that will sustain that abundance. You trace the pure intention. What shape does harmonic and sustainable abundance have? Perhaps it is an expansive torus that constantly flows outward in service and returns inward amplified. You feel the stability of its invisible foundations based on divine self-worth. You design the columns of integrity, the vaults of creativity, and the windows of awakened intuition. This is a harmonic blueprint. It is a coherent structure, geometrically exact and aligned with the source. The resonant field receives this design and orchestrates the physical-temporal precipitation with mathematical fidelity. The consequent emanation is the act of moving from being a passive desirer to being a conscious structural creator. Pure intention is the primary directive in reality engineering. It is not a desperate desire to obtain something from the external world. It is a decree of authority emitted from the center of your divine self. Pure intention does not ask for permission. It establishes the structure. It is the cosmic chalk line that traces the lines of force in the ether of material consciousness. The cosmic chalk line, pure intention as geometry. A pure intention possesses two fundamental characteristics: geometric coherence and vertical alignment. 1. Geometric coherence. Your intention must possess a clear, stable geometry free of subtle contradictions. If your intention is, "I want money," you are emitting a vague and scattered frequency. The resonant field does not know what to build. If your intention is, "I design a cathedral of financial abundance based on the expansive torus of flow and service," you have emitted an exact geometry. You have defined the shape, function, and vibratory dynamics of your structure. To achieve geometric coherence, use the technique of deep structural definition. Before emitting your intention, descend into your internal architectural studio and ask architectural questions. What shape does my radiant health have? Is it a luminous sphere of total vitality? What shape does my harmonic relationship have? Is it a torus of unconditional love and mutual respect? Define the geometry with mathematical precision before tracing the first line in the ether. 2. Vertical alignment. Pure intention does not operate in isolation. For it to possess eternal structural integrity, it must be vertically aligned with the high purpose of your divine self. If your intention of abundance is based on the desire for control, power, or external validation, fear, your structure lacks vertical alignment. It is a Tower of Babel built on the ego and disconnected from the source. This structure is unstable. It has no metaphysical buttresses to distribute the weight of the challenges that will inevitably come. When external pressure increases, criticism, competition, failures, the structure collapses under its own weight. It falls simply because it does not have a vertical connection that gives it stability and elevated purpose. Vertical alignment is the mark of a conscious architect who co-creates with the divine self. Their constructions are expansive and sustainable because they are designed for service and divine expression. The transmuting force, elevated emotion as density. If pure intention is the cosmic chalk line, elevated emotion is the concentrated material consciousness that gives density and volume to your invisible designs. Emotions are not just passing feelings. They are energetic forces with specific vibratory frequencies. Low-frequency emotions such as fear, guilt, or anger create dense, rigid shapes with sharp angles and closed surfaces, like archaic cubes of fear. High-frequency emotions such as love, gratitude, or joy create fluid, expansive, symmetrical, and open shapes, like the expansive torus. Elevated emotion possesses a fundamental constructive function. It is the force that densifies the blueprint. It is the mystical clay that fills the geometry traced by pure intention. An intention without elevated emotion is a two-dimensional blueprint, a sterile abstraction that lacks the energetic critical mass. It cannot precipitate into physical-temporal reality. An elevated emotion without structured intention is scattered energy, water vapor, that does not condense into liquid water. The key to harmonic emanation is to use elevated emotion strategically and consistently, the technique of structured emotional flooding. After tracing your blueprint with pure intention, descend into the construction zone in your inner blueprint. Feel the invisible structure around you. Feel the stability of its foundations, the elevation of its columns, the openness of its spaces. Now visualize your divine self as a radiant sun of white and golden light in the center of your chest. Imagine that this sun emits an unshakable frequency of pure gratitude and elevated joy. Feel this vibration resonating in your heart. Imagine that this light not only shines but flows outward, toward the invisible structure, filling it with the density of pure gratitude. Feel how the structure becomes luminous, vibrant, and heavy with material consciousness densified by elevated emotion. Feel how your cathedral of manifestation acquires volume. It gains energetic critical mass. You have densified the blueprint. You have turned an abstraction into an energetic reality ready for precipitation. Harmonic emanation is completed with the fundamental decree. Your word is not just a means of communication, it is a structural vibratory frequency. The fundamental decree, the word is anchoring frequency. The word possesses the power to anchor the structure in the resonant field. The word is the architectural seal that finalizes the blueprint and activates the physical-temporal precipitation process. Using the word consistently requires you to understand the difference between complaining and the fundamental decree. A complaint is a frequency of restriction and lack, a cube of fear. A superficial affirmation is an ego's attempt to convince itself of something, lacking structural integrity and emotional density. The fundamental decree is an order of authority emitted from your divine self, aligned with your pure intention. A fundamental decree possesses three essential characteristics: divine authority, geometric precision, and present tense. 1. Divine authority. The fundamental decree does not ask for permission. It establishes reality. You do not say, "I hope to manifest abundance." You declare, "I am divine abundance manifested now." You position yourself as the sovereign creator of your existence, operating from your divine self. 2. Geometric precision. Your decree must reflect the exact geometry of your pure intention. If you have designed a cathedral of financial abundance based on the expansive torus, your decree must be, "I decree the perfect manifestation of my cathedral of financial abundance, an expansive torus of flow and service, aligned with my divine self and consolidated by my pure gratitude. It is so." 3. Present tense. The fundamental decree operates in the eternal now. It does not project the construction toward the future, which would keep the manifestation in a state of perpetual waiting. It declares the reality as present now. You say, "I am radiant health now. My harmonic relationship is present now." By declaring reality in the present tense, You activate the invisible resonance node in the ether with a frequency of total presence. The ultimate key to harmonic emanation is structural coherence, the perfect, mathematically exact, and unshakable alignment of your thought, geometry, your emotion, density, and your word, frequency. If any of these elements is in contradiction with the others, you are emitting a flawed and fragmented blueprint. Imagine you try to build a cathedral of harmonic relationship. Your thought, pure intention, says, "I want a loving, conscious, and respectful partner." This is an expansive torus of unconditional love. But your underlying emotion, deeply rooted in an archaic trauma, is emitting a cube of fear of abandonment. And your word, the superficial decree, says, "I am worthy of love," while you constantly complain to your friends that all men, women are the same, or "I will never find anyone." This is a chaotic blueprint. You have a torus trying to expand over a rigid cube, while a fragmented spiral of doubt, your word, spins around it. There is no structural integrity in this design. The universe receives a contradictory blueprint. It tries to build a column of love, but the fear plan cuts it. The result is a chaotic, unstable, and painful manifestation, or total collapse. Structural coherence requires you to assume the sacred responsibility of consciously aligning every aspect of your emanation. You are a master emanator only when you emit a coherent blueprint. The technique of harmonic emanation and structural coherence. Deep coherent observation. Before emitting a blueprint, descend into your internal architectural studio. Observe your own consciousness. Ensure your thought, emotion, and word are emitting the same geometric frequency. If you detect a contradiction, stop. Redesign until there is total structural coherence. Exact geometric definition. Use pure intention to trace the invisible blueprint with mathematical precision. Define the shape, function, and vibratory dynamics of your structure. Ensure it possesses geometric coherence and vertical alignment. Densifying emotional flooding. Use elevated emotion, gratitude, joy, pure love, to give density and volume to your invisible blueprint. Flood the structure with material consciousness densified by your heart. Feel it acquire energetic critical mass. Sealing by fundamental decree. Use your word as a fundamental decree to seal the blueprint and anchor it in the resonant field. Ensure your decree possesses divine authority, geometric precision, and present tense. Frequency sustainability. Once the coherent blueprint is emitted, maintain structural coherence persistently and constantly during the physical-temporal delay. Do not waste energy on impatience or doubt. Invest it in sustaining the perfect blueprint. Become the divine architect who knows that their task is not to create the form, but to sustain the frequency until precipitation is inevitable. By reaching the end of this chapter, you have acquired a sacred responsibility. You are no longer a passive dreamer or a superficial desirer. You are a master emanator, a divine architect operating in a universe of immutable metaphysical physical laws. You understand that the universe does not deny you anything capriciously. It simply responds to the structural integrity of the blueprint you present to it. Your design power resides in structural coherence, the unshakable alignment of your thought, emotion, and word. The law of structural integrity is immutable. The universe only builds what the blueprint allows. And now you possess the knowledge and tools to ensure each of your constructions is eternal. The blueprint is traced. The coherence engineering has been established. Conscious construction is about to resume. Chapter 9. The Power of the Intentional Echo. Conscious creation is, in its essence, an act of resonance, not visualization. Most truth seekers get stuck on the surface of manifestation, erroneously believing that projecting mental images onto the screen of their mind is enough to alter the fabric of physical-temporal reality. This approach is two-dimensional and superficial. It lacks the structural force necessary to penetrate the ultra-sensitive material consciousness of the universe. The universe does not see your images. The universe feels your frequency. It responds to the geometric integrity and vibratory density of your emanation, not to your illustrated desires. This technique is not based on seeing. It is based on submitting. It is not about projecting an image into the future, but about emitting a frequency in the eternal now that possesses the authority of a consummated reality. You will learn to pre-activate the resonance nodes in the cosmic field, emitting a structural vibratory pulse that the universe recognizes. By the law of harmonic correspondence, the universe is forced to complete this design in the world of form. You will become a master of resonance, capable of calling into existence things that are not as if they were. Visualization is a useful tool for focusing the mind, but it is intrinsically passive. It is an outward projection. It is a gaze toward a potential future perceived as separate from you. When visualizing, you often emit a subtle frequency of absence or waiting, simply because you are looking at something that is not here now. This static of absence weakens the structural integrity of your blueprint, keeping manifestation in a state of eternal promise. The intentional echo operates under a completely different metaphysical physics. It is based on the principle of sustained identity resonance. You do not project an image, you emit a vibration, and you do not emit it toward the future. You emit it from your present identity as the sovereign creator of that reality. It is an echo because it is the inevitable harmonic response of the resonant field to a complete design that you already hold in your consciousness. Imagine you are standing in an immense and silent cavern. This cavern represents the ultra-sensitive material consciousness of the universe. If you visualize music there, nothing happens. You remain in silence, projecting a desire. But if you emit a pure and powerful tone with your voice, the tone travels through the air, strikes the cavern walls, and returns to you as a perfect and amplified echo. You have not asked for music. You have submitted a tone, and the cavern has responded with its own resonance. The intentional echo is that pure and powerful tone. It is the emanation of a structural vibratory frequency, a cathedral of abundance, a sphere of health, a torus of love, that you already hold as real in your inner blueprint. You are not waiting for the universe to create music. You are the music. The universe reflects your design. The operational key of the intentional echo is the substitution of image for structural sensation. You must stop trying to see your desired reality and start feeling its structure in your own energy field. The image is two-dimensional. The structural sensation is three-dimensional, dense and vibrant. It possesses critical energy mass. When we explored the geometry of thought, we learned that every persistent thought carves an invisible shape in the ether. Visualization stays on the superficial trace of the blueprint. The intentional echo densifies that blueprint with the material consciousness concentrated by your own divine identity. It turns a drawing into a structure. The technique of resonant pulse emanation. Deep coherent observation. Before emitting the echo, descend into your inner architectural studio. Ensure that your thought, emotion, and word are aligned in total structural coherence. If there is contradiction, stop. Redesign your internal blueprint until there is vibratory unity. Abandonment of the image. Close your physical eyes. Do not try to visualize any image of your desired reality. Give up the need to see. Instead, focus all your attention on your energy field, the space surrounding your physical body. Deep cellular tuning, feeling the structure. If you wish to manifest a cathedral of abundance, do not visualize money. Feel the structure of abundance. Feel the stability of its foundations in your feet. Feel the elevation of its columns in your spine. Feel the opening of its vaults in your expanded chest. Feel the luminous and vibrant frequency of abundance permeating every cell of your body. Feel the solidity, peace, and gratitude right now. You become the structure. You are not looking at the cathedral. You are the cathedral. Emission of the pulse of authority. Once you hold the structural sensation with intensity and total coherence, visualize your divine self as a radiant sun of white and golden light in the center of your chest. Imagine this light concentrates and is emitted outward as a powerful structural vibratory pulse, a geometric shockwave. The seal decree, while emitting the pulse, declare with a voice of command, in the present tense and with divine authority, I am the perfect structure of my cathedral of manifestation, abundance, health, love, vibrant, dense, and present now. I emit this intentional echo with total structural coherence. The resonant field receives this complete design and orchestrates the perfect physical-temporal precipitation now. It is so. Your word is the seal that activates the pulse. Feel how the pulse travels outward, interacting with the ultra-sensitive material consciousness of the universe. Feel the resonant field vibrate in sympathy. You have emitted the intentional echo. You have pre-activated the resonance node with the frequency of a consummated reality. Pre-activation of resonance nodes and physical-temporal alignment. Understanding the physics of the intentional echo requires understanding the nature of resonance nodes. A resonance node is an energetic vortex in the cosmic ether, a point where a geometric design of consciousness has reached critical mass and is about to intersect with the possibilities of the world of form. When you emit an intentional echo, say the vibratory pulse of a cathedral of radiant health, you are not waiting for the universe to create health. You are pre-activating the resonance node of health in the cosmic field. You are declaring, "This structure already exists in my consciousness with total structural integrity." The resonant field, neutral and ultra-sensitive, detects this pulse of authority. It does not judge the design. It simply responds to the frequency. Because the pulse possesses total structural coherence, geometric thought, dense emotion, frequency word, the field recognizes it as a legitimate blueprint and orchestrates synchronicities. You will meet the right person by chance, see the right ad, or have the perfect intuition. Each of these events is a physical anchor point of the invisible resonance node. They are the physical bricks giving body to the original design of your sphere of health. The physical event is the inevitable structural echo of your design. Frequency sustainability and the delay is tuning time. We reach the critical point where most sleepwalking architects fail. Frequency sustainability during the physical-temporal delay, that indispensable time buffer for physical stability. By emitting the intentional echo, you have pre-activated the node. But time passes, and physical precipitation does not occur immediately. During this time, do not be impatient. Impatience is a frequency of lack and restriction, an archaic cube of fear that contaminates your blueprint and suspends manifestation. Use the delay as your time of perfect tuning. It is the interval given to demonstrate your mastery of frequency sustainability. The technique of sustained coherence tuning. Every time doubt, impatience, or parasitic observation of what is, the lack of manifestation, arises in your inner blueprint, stop. Recognize that you are emitting a restrictive frequency that neutralizes your intentional echo. Use the decree of retuning and divine authority. I detect static of doubt contaminating my blueprint of cathedral of manifestation. In this moment of eternal power, I decree the total demolition of this restrictive frequency. I reestablish my total structural coherence. I am the perfect structure of my manifestation. Present now. I emit my intentional echo with unshakable integrity. The resonant field orchestrates the perfect precipitation now. It is so. Re-establish the structural sensation in your body. Feel the stability of abundance, the vibration of health, the warmth of love right now. Hold this frequency with persistence and constancy. You become the divine coherence engineer who knows that their task is not to create the form, but to sustain the frequency until precipitation is inevitable. By mastering frequency sustainability during the delay, you shorten the precipitation time. Not by magic, but by the efficiency of your own engineering of sustained coherence. The power of the intentional echo lies in its radical paradigm shift, from being a passive asker to being a sovereign emitter, and from focusing on the future to anchoring in the now. Superficial visualization is often based on complaint or egoic desire, fear of lack. It asks the universe to give it something. The intentional echo operates from divine authority. It does not ask. It submits the complete design to the cosmic field for precipitation. You say, I am divine abundance manifested now, not I want to have money. By declaring reality in the present tense, you activate the node with a frequency of total presence. Visualization projects, construction toward the future, keeping manifestation in a state of perpetual waiting. The intentional echo operates in the eternal now. It declares reality as present. In doing so, it cancels the frequency of absence with a frequency of presence. It rewrites observed static with a harmonic blueprint. Living with this awareness is to assume a sacred responsibility. It means you can no longer blame the world out there, luck, or fate for your circumstances. It means recognizing that you are solely responsible for the architecture of your own existence. The intentional echo gives you the tools to call things into being. Operational mastery of the intentional echo. Coherence audit. Before emitting an echo, ensure your inner blueprint possesses total structural integrity. Thought, emotion, and word must be aligned. Abandonment of the image. Focus all attention on the structural sensation, not on two-dimensional visualization. Feel the geometry in your own body. Densifying emotional flooding. Use elevated emotion, gratitude, joy, pure love, to give density and critical energy mass to the structural sensation. Emission of the pulse of authority. Broadcast the structural vibratory pulse toward the resonant field with divine authority and in the present tense. Seal by fundamental decree. Use your word as a fundamental decree to seal the blueprint and anchor it in the cosmic field. Unshakable frequency. Sustainability. Maintain the structural coherence of your perfect blueprint during the physical-temporal delay. You are a master of the intentional echo. Your consciousness is the ultra-sensitive cosmic tuner operating in an ocean of pure potential. By mastering this technology, you become a conscious co-creator with the divine self, emitting echoes of love, abundance, and wisdom that resonate for all eternity. The construction is resuming. Chapter 10. Living as the Conscious Architect. Metaphysical mastery is not a state of escape from reality, but a deep and deliberate immersion in it. Up to this point, we have explored the sacred science of structural emanation, the geometry of thought, the function of time as a buffer, and the advanced technology of the intentional echo. These constitute the tools and blueprints. These are the construction machinery of the divine architect. But the work is not carried out in the sterile vacuum of solitary meditation. It is carried out on the vibrant, chaotic, and often challenging terrain of daily life. The divine self operates through you, not as a separate entity, but as the constructive force shaping your world. The embodiment of constructive authority. Living as the conscious architect requires a radical change of identity. You must stop perceiving yourself as a limited human being trying to use spiritual tools to fix a flawed life, and begin to recognize yourself as the sovereign constructive authority of your existence. You are not the building, you are the architect. You are not the blueprint, you are the draftsman. You are not the material, you are the force that gives it shape. This embodiment of constructive authority is not an act of ego, but of sacred responsibility. It means recognizing that every aspect of your reality is the physical precipitation of the geometry you hold internally. Your health, finances, relationships, and inner peace are structural results. If there is a crack in the wall, you don't blame the hammer, you check the blueprint. If the structure wobbles, you don't curse the storm, you inspect the foundations. Daily life becomes your operative architectural studio in every moment. Every moment is an opportunity to emit a structural vibratory frequency of expansion or restriction. When you wake up in the morning, you don't simply start the day. You initiate a new phase of construction. You emit the fundamental decree of structural coherence to seal your harmonic design for the coming hours. When you interact with someone, you are not just talking. You are exchanging sacred geometries, aligning or distorting invisible structures in the resonant field. To embody constructive authority is to live with relentless attention to your own emanation. It requires the discipline of monitoring your thought, emotion, and word. You must ensure they are aligned in total structural coherence. You are a master architect in practice, and your world is the physical testimony of your mastery. The architectural eye of the soul, reading geometry behind form. To navigate daily life with mastery, you must develop the architectural eye of the soul. This is not a mystical vision to see auras or spirits, but an ultra-sensitive perceptive sharpness that allows you to read the invisible architecture behind physical appearances. It allows you to see the design hidden in situations. Physical-temporal world is a three-dimensional projection of metaphysical blueprints. Nothing happens just because. A conflict at work, a sudden illness, an unexpected opportunity. All these are physical resonance nodes, precipitated from an invisible geometry in the ether. Most humans only see the precipitated form. They react to the crisis, the person, or the event with fear, anger, or helplessness. The conscious architect looks through the form to identify the underlying design. The technique of deep structural reading. Imagine you face a challenging situation, such as a conflict with a colleague. Your initial ego reaction is fear or anger, emissions of restrictive cubes of fear and fragmented spirals of doubt. Stop. Do not react to the form, the conflict, the words, the person. Close your physical eyes for a moment and open the mystical eye. Do not try to visualize an image. Use your deep cellular tuning. Detect the structural frequency. Feel the vibration of the situation. What shape does it have? Is it a restrictive cube of fear pressing on your chest? Is it a fragmented spiral of doubt spinning erratically? Is it a metal net wrapping around your head? Feel the texture of the form. Is it cold, rigid, and heavy? If the answer is yes, you have identified a structure of restriction. You have seen the archaic cube of fear, perhaps inherited or built in the past, that has orchestrated this physical resonance node of conflict. You have read the architecture. By seeing the invisible structure, you strip the power of the situation. You cease to be the victim of the conflict and become the observer of the geometry that sustains it. And in that space between you and the restrictive structure lies the power of your divine self for real-time adjustment and sacred restructuring. Real-time adjustment and sacred restructuring. Developing the architectural eye of the soul is useless if you do not possess the metaphysical technology for real-time adjustment and sacred restructuring. When reading the restrictive architecture behind a challenge, your task is not to fight the physical form, which would only strengthen it, but to neutralize the frequency. You must redesign the blueprint at the exact moment of impact. Daily life is dynamic. Challenges arise instantly. You do not have time to retreat to meditate for hours before reacting. You need metaphysical emergency protocols designed to operate in the microscale of the present moment. You need the engineering of instant adjustment, the technique of neutralization by alchemical frequency. Upon identifying the structure of restriction behind the conflict, the cube of fear, for example, do not try to think positive or force an emotion of love. That is superficial and ineffective. Instead, use the force of your divine self to emit an ultra-sensitive and transmuting alchemical frequency of total violet light. Visualize your divine self as a radiant sun of violet light in the center of your chest. Imagine this light flows outward toward the structure of restriction, flooding it. Feel how the violet light penetrates deeply into the density of the cube of fear, dissolving its energetic molecules and releasing its trapped vital energy. While visualizing the violet flood, internally emit the decree of alchemical transmutation and operative neutralization. From the center of my divine self, I am the sovereign authority of my consciousness. I detect this structure of restriction of fear, lack sabotaging my structural integrity. I invoke the violet light of alchemical transmutation to flood this archaic geometry. I command total and immediate dissolution. It is so. Feel how the structure of restriction dissolves. Feel the neutrality and peace that arise in your inner blueprint. You have neutralized the frequency that sustained the challenge. You have cleared the ground of static in real time. The technique of sacred restructuring by intentional echo. Once the restrictive frequency is neutralized, you must redesign the blueprint immediately. Do not leave the ground empty. Use intentional echo technology, explored in Chapter 9, to pre-activate a new harmonic resonance node. Define the new geometry you wish to manifest in that specific situation. If you desire harmony at work, design a torus of harmonic collaboration and mutual respect. Feel the structure in your body, the stability of foundations in divine self-worth, the elevation of columns in integrity, the opening of spaces in clear communication. Feel the vibrant and expansive frequency of. Submit this new complete design to the cosmic field with total structural coherence, geometric thought, dense emotion of gratitude, frequency word. Use the decree of restructuring and harmonic anchoring. I am the perfect structure of my torus of harmonic collaboration, vibrant, dense, and present now. I emit this intentional echo with unshakable integrity. The resonant field receives this complete design and orchestrates the perfect physical-temporal precipitation now. It is so. Feel the intentional echo travel outward, reactivating the cosmic field with the frequency of a consummated reality. People as architectural mirrors. Reading geometry in relationships. Perhaps the most powerful application of architectural consciousness in daily life lies in human interactions. As explored in Chapter 5, the people you attract, your deep relationships, and casual encounters are not random. They are living resonant nodes, physical projections of your own consciousness. Living as the conscious architect requires you to use your human interactions as a mystical mirror to inspect your own inner blueprint. When you interact with someone, you're interacting with a complex energetic field that enters into resonance or dissonance with yours. If someone irritates, frightens, or judges you, do not blame that person. That is superficial. Use your architectural eye to read the geometry behind the interaction. Feel the structural vibratory frequency they emit. Is it a cube of fear of lack? Is it a fragmented spiral of doubt? Is it a metal net of control? Upon identifying the restrictive frequency in the other, ask yourself the deep architectural question: where do I hold this same geometry in my own inner blueprint? Where do I have a similar cube of fear operating in my foundations? Often, you will discover that the challenging person is a living resonance node. The universe has orchestrated this to reflect an archaic wound or a structure of restriction you thought you had demolished. It is a structural echo shouting, "Look, here is the shape you are emitting." Use this revelation for real-time adjustment. Do not try to change the other person, that is useless. Descend into your own inner blueprint, locate the identical structure of restriction, and use alchemical neutralization and sacred restructuring to transmute your own archaic design. By healing your own geometry, the physical resonance node of the challenging person must change due to mathematical precision. Challenges and crises as resonant nodes of architectural correction. This mystical perspective must be applied relentlessly to events the ego perceives as negative, painful, or unjust. Challenges, crises, illnesses, and failures are not punishments from the universe or attacks from blind external forces. They are resonant nodes of architectural correction. As we explored in Chapter 4, the law of structural integrity is immutable. The universe only builds what the blueprint allows. If you try to build a cathedral of abundance on foundations of scarcity, restrictive cubes of fear, the construction is unstable. Sooner or later, it will collapse. When a challenge arises, use your architectural eye to read the geometry behind the collapse. Do not focus on the pain or loss. That is reactive. Look through the physical form to identify the archaic structure of restriction that has orchestrated the resonance node of the crisis. Recognize that the crisis is the structural echo of the contradiction in your blueprint. To see it as an external catastrophe is to perpetuate your victim state. To see it as a resonant node of architectural correction is to reclaim your design power. It gives you the chance to be a divine architect who rebuilds. Use the challenge as the catalyst for conscious demolition and sacred restructuring. Descend to your internal ruin, locate the corrupt foundation of scarcity, fear, or unworthiness, and use alchemical neutralization techniques to transmute it. Then, use intentional echo technology to pre-activate a new node. The challenge is the invitation of the divine self to reclaim your solemn constructive authority and to co-create an eternal harmonic reality. The sacred responsibility of the master divine architect. By reaching the end of this chapter, you have acquired a sacred responsibility. You are no longer a passive dreamer or a superficial seeker of manifestations. You are the divine architect operating in a universe of immutable metaphysical physical laws. Responsibility for your reality is total. It means recognizing that every moment is an opportunity to emit a frequency of expansion or restriction. It means monitoring your thought, emotion, and word, ensuring they are aligned in total structural coherence. It means using your architectural eye to read the geometry behind situations and people. You are the sovereign engineer of your own destiny, operating in the eternal now of daily life. You have become a conscious co-creator with the divine self, emitting echoes of love, abundance, and wisdom that resonate for all eternity. The conscious construction is about to resume. Chapter 11. The Eternal Echo of the Divine Self. We have traveled a path of fundamental transformation, ascending from the basic understanding of the geometry of thought to the operative mastery of the intentional echo and the integration of architectural consciousness into daily life. You have learned to demolish archaic structures of limitation and to trace harmonic blueprints of expansion. You have learned to use time as a tool for inspection and tuning. You have recognized yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as the sovereign constructive authority of your own existence. This final chapter addresses the ultimate and highest phase of mystical mastery, the consciousness of constructive eternity. You will learn to transcend the illusion of death and physical-temporal limitation, recognizing that your consciousness does not end with the dissolution of the physical body. Instead, it is an eternal echo of the divine self that continues to structure realities in higher planes of existence. You will discover that by mastering the architecture of your consciousness in the physical-temporal experience, you become a conscious co-creator with the universe. You emit a structural vibratory pulse of love, abundance, and wisdom that resonates throughout all eternity. Your work is not temporary, it is eternal. Your echo does not fade. It is amplified in the cosmic field, contributing to the great constructive symphony of the divine source. The illusion of finitude and the reality of the constructive continuum. The greatest lie imposed on human consciousness is the notion of finitude, the belief that existence begins with birth and ends with death. This materialistic and restrictive vision is the root of all fear, all lack, and all limitation. If you believe your time is limited, you build ephemeral structures based on survival and the fear of loss. You become an architect of the temporary, a builder of shacks in a universe of eternal cathedrals. From the mystical perspective and authority of the God-Self archives, death is not the end of existence. It is an architectural transition point. It is the moment when consciousness is released from the physical-temporal scaffolding to continue its constructive labor in more subtle and expansive planes of reality. Your consciousness is pure structural vibratory energy, and energy, by the law of cosmic conservation, is not destroyed. It is simply transformed. Imagine that you have spent years building a majestic cathedral on a specific plot of land. The physical scaffolding, the tools, the cranes, all of that is necessary for construction. But once the cathedral is finished, the scaffolding is removed. The cathedral does not disappear. It is simply revealed in its true glory, sustained by its own structural integrity. Your physical body is due scaffolding. It is the temporary tool that your divine self uses to densify material consciousness in the physical experience. Death is the moment to withdraw the scaffolding. Your consciousness, the true invisible structure that you have cultivated through your thoughts, emotions, and words, does not disappear. It is released from physical-temporal limitation to continue its expansion and creation in planes of existence where manifestation is instant. In these planes, geometry is pure light. You are an eternal echo, and your constructive work continues beyond the horizon of the visible. The physical-temporal delay as a school of eternal mastery. Understanding the eternity of consciousness sheds new light on the function of the physical-temporal delay. The delay is not a barrier. It is a school of eternal mastery. It is the environment designed by cosmic intelligence so that consciousness learns to sustain the structural integrity of its blueprints despite the contrary evidence of the world of form. In higher planes of existence, material consciousness is ultra-sensitive. In those planes, creation is instantaneous. You think of an expansive torus of love, and the torus materializes instantly as an energetic reality. In that environment, frequency inconstancy, a fleeting thought of doubt or fear, would cause immediate constructive chaos. Structures would appear and disappear without end. The physical-temporal experience with its structural delay is the training ground for eternity. Here, material consciousness is dense and resistant. It demands that you demonstrate total and sustained structural coherence. Geometric thought, dense emotion of gratitude, frequency word, for the blueprint to cross the threshold. It forces you to become a master of frequency sustainability. If you learn to sustain your cathedral of abundance with unshakable integrity during the physical-temporal delay, despite your physical senses perceiving only lack, you are cultivating a structural force that is eternal. You are demonstrating that your design is not an ephemeral whim of the ego, but a solid and sustainable structure aligned with your divine self. By mastering the delay in the world of form, you graduate from the school of eternal mastery, ready to co-create realities of light and purity in planes where manifestation is instant. Conscious co-creation with the divine self, emitting the echo of the source. The ultimate purpose of physical temporal existence is not just to manifest things for the ego, but to embody and express the divine self in the world of form. By mastering the architecture of your consciousness, clearing your ground of archaic structures and tracing harmonic blueprints, you become a pure vehicle. You become a vehicle for the constructive force of the divine source. You become a conscious co-creator. Conscious co-creation is not a collaboration between two separate entities, you and the universe. It is the recognition that you are the constructive consciousness of the universe operating through an individual focus. Your divine self is not an external entity that gives you things. It is the divine source of pure intention, perfect geometry, and elevated emotion that flows through you to shape material consciousness. When you emit an intentional echo of a cathedral of unconditional love, you are not just wishing. You are emitting the frequency of the source. You are declaring to the cosmic field, I am the perfect structure of divine love manifested now. I emit this structural vibratory pulse with unshakable integrity. The resonant field receives this complete design and orchestrates the perfect precipitation. It is so. By co-creating consciously, your constructions are not just for you, they are for the universe. They are resonance nodes of light, love, and wisdom that enrich the cosmic field. You emit an echo that does not fade, but resonates throughout all eternity, contributing to the great constructive symphony of the divine self. Sustainability of the eternal echo and the physical-temporal delay. Mystical architectural mastery is not a static event. It is a vibratory dynamic that must be actively sustained, especially during the physical-temporal delay that inspection time explored in Chapter 2. By emitting an intentional echo, you have pre-activated the node. But time passes and precipitation is not immediate. During this time, do not be impatient. Impatience is a frequency of lack and restriction, an archaic cube of fear that contaminates your blueprint and suspends manifestation. Use the delay as your time of perfect tuning. It is the interval the universe grants you to demonstrate mastery of frequency, sustainability. The technique of sustained coherence tuning and eternal authority. Every time doubt, impatience, or parasitic observation of what is, the lack of manifestation, arises in your inner blueprint, stop. Recognize that you are emitting a restrictive frequency that neutralizes your intentional echo. Use the decree of retuning and eternal divine authority. I detect static of doubt impatience contaminating my blueprint of cathedral of manifestation. In this moment of eternal power, I decree the total demolition of this restrictive frequency. I re-establish my total structural coherence. I am the perfect structure of my manifestation, present now. I emit my intentional echo with unshakable integrity. The resonant field orchestrates the perfect physical-temporal precipitation now. It is so. Re-establish the structural sensation in your body. Feel the stability of abundance and the vibration of health. Feel the warmth of love right now. Hold this frequency with persistence and constancy. You become the divine coherence engineer who knows that their task is not to create the form, but to sustain the frequency until precipitation is inevitable. By mastering this, you shorten the precipitation time. By doing so, you are cultivating a structural force that is eternal. Your echo becomes powerful, pure, and eternal. The mystical conclusion, the echo that never fades. We have reached the end of this operative archive of the divine self. The God Self Archives is not just a repository of metaphysical knowledge. It is a reality engineering manual designed to awaken the divine architect within you. You have learned to demolish archaic structures, to trace harmonic blueprints, and to use time as a tool for inspection. You have recognized yourself as the sovereign constructive authority of your own existence. Now, the final mystical work is yours. You must embody this architectural consciousness in every breath, every interaction, and every challenge of daily life. You must become a master of resonance, capable of pre-activating harmonic resonance nodes with the power of the intentional echo. You must sustain the structural coherence of your perfect blueprints with unshakable integrity during the physical-temporal delay. Remember, you are an eternal echo of the divine self. Your consciousness does not end. It is pure structural vibratory energy that continues its constructive labor. By mastering the architecture of your consciousness in the physical-temporal experience, you graduate from the school of eternal mastery, ready to co-create realities of light, love, and wisdom for all eternity. Your work is not temporary, it is eternal. Your echo does not fade, it is amplified in the field. You are an eternal co-creator, and your echo is a melody of expansion and divinity that resonates in the ether forever. The conscious construction is about to resume. Prepare to redefine your relationship with the resonant field. Conclusion: the awakening of the divine architect. We have traveled a path of fundamental transformation. The God-Self Archives has not been simply a repository of metaphysical knowledge, but a reality engineering manual designed to awaken the sovereign constructive authority that resides at the center of your being, your divine self. Throughout this operative archive, we have dismantled the illusions of victimization, lack, and physical-temporal limitation, revealing the sacred mechanics of structural emanation. You have learned that reality is not a random stage where events happen just because. Instead, it is the physical, tangible, and mathematically exact testimony of the geometry you hold in your consciousness. You have discovered that your thoughts and emotions are not ethereal abstractions, but invisible structures, restrictive cubes of fear, expansive toroids of love. You have recognized fragmented spirals of doubt that interact with the ultrasensitive material consciousness of the resonant field to create the resonance nodes that precipitate as your life experience. Mystical mastery requires that you assume the sacred and unshakable responsibility of your own emanation. You are the divine architect, and your world is the building you construct with every stroke of your pure intention, geometry, every emotional flood from your heart, density, and every fundamental decree of your word, frequency. You have learned advanced techniques to interact with this material consciousness. You have learned to dismantle chaotic resonance nodes and to strengthen harmonic nodes aligned with your divine self. The physical-temporal delay, that time buffer we often perceive as an obstacle to our desires, has revealed itself as your time of inspection and perfect tuning. It is the safety interval that the universe grants you to demonstrate your mastery of frequency sustainability. If you learn to sustain the structural coherence of your perfect blueprints, your cathedrals of abundance, health, and love, with unshakable integrity during the delay, you grow. Even if your physical senses perceive no evidence, you are cultivating a structural force that is eternal. You are demonstrating that your design is not an ephemeral whim of the ego, but a solid and sustainable structure aligned with your divine self. To live as the conscious architect is to embody this. Living as the conscious architect means embodying this constructive authority in daily life. It means constantly monitoring your emanation, using the architectural eye to read the geometry behind situations, people, and challenges. It means applying the techniques of alchemical neutralization and sacred restructuring. This adjustment in real time means recognizing that your consciousness does not end with the dissolution of the physical body. It is an eternal echo of the divine self that continues to structure realities beyond the physical temporal experience. By co-creating consciously, your constructions are not just for you. They are for the universe. They are resonance nodes of light, love, and wisdom that enrich the cosmic field. You emit an echo that does not fade, but resonates throughout all eternity, contributing to the great constructive symphony of the divine self. You become an eternal co-creator. Your echo is a melody of expansion and divinity that resonates in the ether forever. The inspection is over. The coherence engineering has been established. Conscious construction is about to resume. Prepare to redefine your relationship with the resonant field.